Salve GBA fans, it's Xilicks here, and welcome to week 10 of the weekly recap. So this is the video that was missing from last week. I do want to apologize for not having this video out on time. Confusion and I were both very busy last week, so we did ask some of our fellow analysts to record the video for us. They were missing some of the graphic slides, so I had to make the graphics whenever I got back from my trip, which ended up getting stalled, and I also ended up being very busy as well. So unfortunately this is going up late, so keep in mind this is the recap from last week. If you want to see the recap from this week, being week 11, that should be uploaded sometime after this video, not entirely sure. But thanks again to the analysts that stepped in, and without any further ado, let's get into the recap.
Yo GBA type people, this is itzTurbo and I'm here with TheFlyingBird. Now this isn't power rankings, you might be confused, this is indeed the weekly recap. We are covering for the weekly recap usual host because they have had a busy week. So hopefully you can deal with us for 2 days in a row, considering we'll be on weekly recap and power rankings. But without further ado, Bird, why don't you jump straight into our first week's game this week, being the Detroit Steel Wings versus the Bronx Pathaks.
Alright, well, I rang my local police department this morning because this was daylight robbery, surely. So, when looking at this match, there's a few very interesting exchange. So, the opening exchange of the Toxic in turn 1, and then the HP investment in the Lycanroc was really clutch. And then the way he pivots into Vincoon, the red card was caught by Joey was definitely a really cool set idea to stop the Suicune. However, it was an unlucky switch into the Infernape. The U-turn play really helped gain that momentum for Chase, and the offensive Kangaskhan to break Joey's team was a really nice set. However, Joey's use of the identification of hazard set them up on Kangaskhan was clutch. A nice double on the Whimsicott onto Ape on the Salazzle, where the good players get rewarded with the crit as seen, and that was really the pivotal moment in the match. Chase was in a really good position, and it was a real shame to see the crit from the Sludge Wave on Salazzle. And then also I don't think it's really a pivotal moment, but the fact that he didn't get flinched to death by Ironhead, which I love to watch personally, so there's nothing more entertaining. But then it was an O-code by Necrozma's Black Hole Eclipse. This game saw the world's luckiest man being able for coming in clutch. Didn't do too badly for a Mon that AIM said he was trying to sack off earlier in the battle. And when we look at the statistics for this game, so the kills this week, we saw Mega B go 1-1, Kangaskhan 2-1, Suicune 1-0-1, Lycanroc Dust 0-1, Infernape 0-1, Jirachi 1-1. We saw the Mega Gyarados clean up at the end, Crosma going 1-1, Whimsicott 0-1, Salazzle 1+, Rotoms 0-1, Zygarde VP 0-1. What do you think of the match, Turbo?
I mean, you missed out one of the other key turns in the game. Just the Suicune getting burned with the flamethrower in the end game with the Salazzle really stopped the Suicune from being able to almost stall out the end game of Joey's team. It allowed the Mega Gyarados to come in, set up, and get that 3 kills at the end that it needed to win the game. Again, the fake out Kangaskhan was nice and scared Joey as well, but there's not much else to speak about this game. Crimson played well, but we'll talk more analysis in the power rankings. Coming into the next match of the week, we have Lars versus Envy and the Gym Chargers, a game that does greatly affect playoffs. A couple of big turns in this game is the Curon Black taking that Z fighting move from the Magmortar, something that Envy wasn't expecting at all, and managing to revenge it, as well as the late game, the Tapu Koko having both forms of initiative with U-turn and Volt Switch, allowing it to U-turn and Volt Switch between the Mega Manectric and the Tapu Fini, which was coming in late game in order for Envy to gain momentum each time as well. There's not much else really in terms of key turns in the game, because a lot of it is just pivoting around, waiting for the right entry point in the game for Envy to go and take the game. The kill leaders for this game were Tapu Koko going 3-0 on Envy's part, and then Lars picking up 3 kills with the Tapu Fini as well, purely because it had such a good matchup. What comments have you got on this game and Bird?
I think one thing you overlooked was how aggressive Envy played against this game against Lars. You know, just for example, the turn 1 power, we see Envy every battle making that offense use a turn 1 play, always trying to get some big damage off. Also, the way that Envy just calcs on the fly is pretty impressive. So for example, the Magmortar going for the Flame Charge and then the Focus Blast, but then Envy also identifying after that. He could safely bring in Napoleon and set up an Agility. Then the Terrain Wall was definitely an interesting thing to watch. However, I did think one comment was how I thought Lars Mega evolved his Mega Manectric a little bit too early. I think by not having it in base form, it sort of cost him, because while Manectric's in base form, it sort of forced Envy to always click Dazzling Gleam. And then also as well, the terrain wall was pretty interesting to see. And I thought one thing you really overlooked was the Scarf Glider to kill the Mega Manectric, which was a really nice bring.
Into the third game of this week, the Florida Gators win 1-0 over the Tampa Bay Luxrays. This game was a recreation, so make sure you check out both coaches' sides. That's why there's some weird plays on Showdown, just bear that in mind. This game didn't have many defining turns as such. More so, the Livani just getting up webs twice against Mono allowed for the Mamoswine to outspeed the whole of Mono's team, or so he thought, because the Weavile actually did outspeed the Mamoswine. Mamoswine being a massive threat and getting a few kills, especially one big superpower one on the Snorlax, was not a roll due to Gators' investment. Klefki coming through in the late game to get a nice roll kill with the Dazzling Gleam on the Keldeo after Gator missed a almost game-losing play rough in the end game as well. Buzzwole getting toxic early on really stopped the threat of that Buzzwole sweeping through his team, through Mono's team. But otherwise, there wasn't really much to say about this match. It was just a good match overall in terms of balance and gameplay. What do you think, Bird?
I think it was definitely the most creative game this week when it comes down to how they recreated the battles. I think what Gator did well this week was he took advantage of the way that Mono builds his teams, and the way that he traditionally only has one check to certain ones, if that makes sense. So, like, for example, the Palossand being the designated Buzzwole check. If the Buzzwole gets off more damage than it needs to, it really throws Mono a loophole in terms of how his team is sort of organised. I think that's where the Buzzwole was really underappreciated this week, just in terms of that capacity. Also, it does come down to that 50-50 of does Mono knock off or Ice Shard, which he mentioned in commentary, and it was just one bad play or one 50-50 that went against Mono.
Coming into the next game, we have the Kansas City Giraffe Chiefs taking that massive 4-0 win over the San Francisco Giants. Now, this game was very, very bizarre due to Gio's unconventional prep, but due to a quite ridiculous matchup on his part. I'm not going to lie. The matchup is very ugly, to say the least. Gio starting off with that nice turn one suicidally Dugtrio, getting rocks up and doing a bunch of damage to the Mega Venusaur. A really, really nice turn one play. But then Gio takes that advantage to go into Hexos and try and set up. Unfortunately, Jolt comes through with some clutch prep in the Scarfed Alolan Persian, which was just a complete threat to Gio's team going out through the game. Now, the one questionable play that people might take from this is the last turn play where Blacephalon flung instead of just fire blasting the Celesteela. The reason that Gio did that is because Gio would guaranteed lose the game if he just killed the Celesteela. But if Jolt decided to choke and go into one of his dark types, Blacephalon would be able to do enough damage, especially the Persian, to kill that and then be able to perhaps kill some other things before, in fact, losing the game. So Gio made the right play in terms of recovering differential, just in case anyone wants to say that Gio should have fire blasted in the end game. If he wanted a chance of winning, the fling was the correct play, and that's why he made it. Gio was a pretty standard Jolt game with an aggressive underspeeding Aerodactyl. Just got a little bit too aggressive with the speed creeping there for Gio's part, and then the really cash Alolan Persian double Dark Core was just too much for Gio's team. Any other comments on the game, Bird?
Yeah, double Dark Core is too much when he doesn't bring in Hydreigon once in the battle. That's pretty funny. I think the way that Jolt used Gardevoir this season, it reminds me of when Cloud used it. I think it was like NPL Season 5, where he used to, the ability to trace just perfectively. It's not perfect, it's perfectively. The way that he Thunder Waves the Mew, the way the Pixie Plate picks up massive damage rolls and things, the way he uses Scarf Alolan Persian, that parting shot, which was an interesting bring. I disagree with you on the light ball fling play. I think that when you are going into these playoff contention races, differential is the most important thing. So I think Gio was actually better off trying to save differential by just killing the Celesteela, and then whatever happens after that happens. I think that's where you just got to make those balls to the walls play. Unfortunately, I think Gio's prep, I think the last 2 weeks has sort of fallen off the wagon. The Natural Gift Shaman was very questionable in my eyes, especially when it was Natural Gift Fire. You can sort of half understand it for the Breloom / Celesteela, but I thought Natural Gift Electric was so much better in this matchup. And I think that's all I really have to say on the match, to be honest.
Sweet. Jumping into the next mess of a game this week, if we do have to say so ourselves, it was the Milwaukee Bewares and the New Orleans Pelippers. Now, you will not see more Hurricanes missed in a game than this game ever, probably. John got really, really unlucky with the rolls this game in terms of that 30% chance for Hurricane to miss, because Tornadoes, it really, really put out Tornadoes' chance of winning the game in the end game, with it needing to be able to take a hit and then get off 2 attacks in the end game in order for a victory. Unfortunately, it missed, I believe, 3 Hurricanes in the end game, which was really huge and allowed for Wolfie to get through his entire team. The turn 1 circuitry setup was insanely ballsy on Wolfie's part, just clicking that tail glow turn 1 and deciding to rip through some of John's team from turn 1. I respect that when players do that. Sometimes I think that it's a good idea just to set up and tear through opponents' teams, because sometimes they don't have the right countermeasures to it and then will end up tilting half their team. Fortunately, John did play around it reasonably well, but the game-defining play was the end game with those Hurricane misses that completely prevented John from having any chance of winning this game. But I'm sure you've got something to say about your favoured New Orleans Pelippers.
Oh, don't put words into my mouth. So, you say that the Hurricane misses at the end to find the match. That is not actually the turning point. The turning point in the match is about midway through the game, where Wolfie sets up a sword stance on the switch out, and then John goes for makes the switch into his arena, risking the knockoff as Wolfie sets up the SD. He then clicks Power Whip, and then he misses that Power Whip, and that Power Whip, according to John at least, had enough investment where it would kill the Mega Absol behind the Reflect. That was the game-defining turn, because everything after that is relevant. Because if John kills the Mega Absol in his commentary, he does say that Mega Diancie will then sweep through the team. The turn 1 play by Wolfie, bravo. That really just shows how aggressive Wolfie is. He's known in the VGC community to make some really aggressive plays. We saw it in, I think, his final match for Worlds, where he was really playing Hitmontop aggressively in certain situations, where I think he SD turned 1 with his Mega Rayquaza, and it was cool to see that tech come in and play with his Circuitry Tail Glow, and it made a really nice play, because it was a really mid-ground play in a really weird sort of backwards way, because if he clicked HP Ice, John couldn't go into his Garchomp or his Tesserina. He was forced to go for the Tail Glow, and then subsequently John would have to play on the defensive. It's something that we see quite often in terms of VGC players, that how devastating Mons can start to be. Also, I think that the defensive Entei was a really nice prep by Wolfie, showing how diverse he's actually becoming in this extended metagame. Also, the early game Toxic on the Garchomp, and also the Sleep Powder on the Tornadoes is very clutch as well early on in the game. However, I think that Wolfie's offensive pressure this week was way too much for John to handle, and I think if I was my good friend Pokemon, I wouldn't visit a casino anytime soon.
Coming in, speaking of VGC coaches, we have another VGC coach, and the news just in that Coach Z has secured his first win in the GBA, a big commanding 3-0 win versus the Melbourne Rotoms. Now, a really, really interesting game where Coach Z used the exploits of Manaphy in the rain to sort of play around Aaron's team as a whole. A big turn in the game is Aaron letting his Mega Swampert get burned, as the Mega Swampert had the biggest offensive presence on Aaron's team aside from the Kartana. Allowing it to get burned by Weezing was not a great play in my opinion at all. A really impressive showing from Coach Z, with Sneasel being able to clean up the end game. It was a very, very self-explanatory game, and I suggest you go and check it out. But do you have anything to say about this game?
Well, I think our job is actually to explain the game. I think that Coach Z this week, oh, mate, there was a different Coach Z. The good thing about editing the weekly recap slides is when you get to Aaron, you don't have to change much each week. He brings the same similar construct each week, which is quite negative, to be honest. Like, the Kingdra is still the same set. The way that he clicks Draco Meteor on the Manaphy when it has a Calm Mind up to really just let it sit there. The other cool use was the use of Trace Mega Gardevoir to set up to basically trace the Swift Swim from the Kingdra. The Weezing and Manaphy defensive core and Celebi defensive core was just way too much to handle. the Coach Z, the one thing that I thought was a bit weird was when the Mimikyu comes in, surely Excadrill still play hard every time, because, you know, if you're Scarf Ironhead, Mimikyu can't do anything to touch you. You know, and then I really like the foul play Sneasel at the end to clean up. But I think the fans at home just have one question: who is the coach of the Melbourne Rotoms?
Next up, we have the Philadelphia Sizzles now versus the Victoria Shadows. An interesting game with sort of hacks and rolls coming into it at both the start game and the end game. That you'll notice the start of the game that Chimpak's Uxie gets powered about twice, preventing it from setting up rocks, and Chimpak not even noticing that Uxie didn't set rocks up by the time he switched it out. Big turns in the start of the game, meaning that Necro didn't have to be forced into spin with his Delmise and is able to set up SDs on the Scrafty and try to break it down that way. Unfortunately, the Delmise doesn't manage to break down or kill the Scrafty, forcing in some late game drama as the Scrafty is able to take a all-out pummeling from a Metagross through a Protect, even though it was a roll, and also being able to take 2 bandage returns through rolls in the sand from a Stoutland as well. The real defining point of the game was the late game where Necro chose not to bullet punch the Zygarde 10%, even though it probably was in range, which would have won in the game considering the Zygarde 10% and the Nihilego was left, instead choosing to go into his Togekiss. Unfortunately, the Togekiss fell to a sub Nihilego, which was able to sub up after one more turn of rocks. But I see you've got a bit to say about this game, so why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, well, I make some very detailed notes. I think that the real thing about this game was I didn't watch Chimp's side because Chimp's too high IQ for my liking, so I can't watch his side. But I watched it from Necro's perspective, and I think that the scoreline doesn't really tell the story of this match. I don't think it was really a 1-0. I think that this game was a lot more heavily in Chimp's favour. You mentioned earlier about the Uxie, for example. He switches it out as it does get up Stealth Rocks. The paralysis really sucks, but also Necro makes a very aggressive play with the Delmise clicking SD as the Scrafty switches in. You know, that was a foul play by Uxie that turn. That's a dead Delmise. Also, the Scrafty having the Protect was really nice on Chimp's end because it means that each time that Necro tries to bring Sand in to sweep, he can stop it. You know, Protect, stall out a turn. Drain Punch was a really nice combination. However, I did think that there was a turn in the game, or one of the first times he brings Scrafty in, probably the second time brings it in on Sand, and he's playing the Stoutland. He should have protected the first turn just to waste one of the Sand turns. And then that way you could Drain Punch and then Protect again, so you got an extra 6%. And I don't think the return roll would have mattered then.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have mattered then.
So, like, that's just something to keep in mind for Chimp. You know, I think that sometimes Chimp makes a few weaker plays. However, he is, you know, a very solid coach. The Sub-Nihilego was a really nice play by Chimp. The Thunder Wave on the Togekiss as the Bulu comes in was really nice. And the Power Hub gave a lot of momentum to Necro. However, the fact that he didn't get set up for Lucha meant that it was a bit on the back foot. And then I think another interesting play by Necro was shoving off the Z move with the Metagross. Only because I think that sometimes mystery of an item is more deadly than anything else. So for example, if Chimp thinks it's going to be Shocker Berry at the end game, and it's not, for example, as you click Bullet Punch to finish it off, that's, you know, a crazy little bit of momentum you can get. You know, Necro says in his commentary he was a little bit on tilt towards the end game. I think that sort of impacted the matchup. However, I do think Chimp played really smart with the Sub-Nihilego and the defensive Scrafty, which worked out really nicely. However, I thought Necro opting to bring the Choice Band was a bit interesting this week because I think Life Orb would have done it for him because he could have Life Orb player off the Scrafty and then gone on a return streak and just GG to Necro, I think. But unfortunately, my boy Chimp has come through yet again.
It's a nice little sound effect there. But coming into the final game, I forgot about this game in honesty. And actually, I believe this is probably the game of the week this week. After taking that slim 1-0 victory over the San Jose Sharpedos. Coming up 2 HP Lopunny to win the game. Lopunny picking up 4 kills this game. Interestingly, the Lopunny getting toxic right at the early game is what could have been Tom's saving grace there with that Rotom. The Rotom set was clean, allowing it to 1v1 both the Mudsdale and the Scolipede in the mid game, in which probably the best Pokemon was played from Tom's perspective. Kommo-o was able to set up rocks alongside the Mudsdale and then proceed to allow it to get worn down because it didn't have rest by the Toxic that was put onto it by the Kommo-o as well. Scarf Swallow is an ingenuitive bring which forced out certain mons such as the Lopunny turn 1, although I think the biggest turn in the game was the Milotic clicking Miracle on Roserade, killing the Roserade because Roserade had massive offensive pressure on Asta's team in the late game, and Tom losing that Roserade to a Miracle basically put him in a very, very tough position in the end game. Because his biggest offensive threat was gone. But what do you want to say about this game?
So you asked my thoughts. 2 previous NPL minors, big dogs going at it this week. And I think Tom was a bit scared. He got faked down a little bit by the Mega Lopunny. The Rocky Hunt Mashana was nice, except for the fact it got 2-shot by the Mega Lop. Interesting tactic. The knockoff Meloetta and sort of like mixed Meloetta was an interesting bring. I think also as well, the Toxic on the Mudsdale was pretty good. However, I think that Roserade not setting up a spike, or in Tom's case, not bringing spikes, was really what cost him a battle.
Fair enough. Coming into the MVP race. Now, we are going off what the fan doc says. And at this point in time, the #1 kill leader, speaking of Mr. Asta J, is the Lopunny Mega, coming in with 17 kills in 7 deaths in 10 games, followed by Chimpax and Nihilego with 16 kills and 6 kills in 10 games, 16 kills and 6 deaths, sorry, in 10 games. And third, Chase's Thunderous Eye, falling off its top spot with 14 kills and 7 deaths in 9 games. Now, Bird, what do you think of those top 3?
Well, I think only one of the top 3 mons belongs to one of the top 4 coaches in power rankings. So everyone else got to lift their game. I think the way that Asta is using Mega Lopunny is really effective, especially considering he picked up 4 massive kills this week against Tom Z. Chase's Thunderous Eye has been deadly every time I've seen it. However, I think the real MVP, the big dog, is the Mega Pinsir on Envy. He's a cut above the rest when he's playing those guys that some people think is a dead rubber affairs. And that Mega Pinsir now, 11 kills with 1 death. I reckon come closer to finals, we're going to see it top the kill leader.
It's an interesting pickup.
What do you think?
I mean, coming just above that with 11 kills and 2 deaths is that Breloom on Jolt's part as well. That's an interesting one. Getting brought to less games than the Mega Pinsir. Oh no, an equal amount of games to the Mega Pinsir as well. So that could be an interesting one in the race.
5 is a higher number than 5. Changed my mind.
True. I mean, 7th Mon of the Year maybe on either of the parts. I believe they both will be eligible for 7th Mon of the Year at the end of the season, considering there are only 2 games left as well. I mean, coming in the end of the season, I believe the Lopunny will be the top kill leader. Once again, in the GBA, I believe it has the top kill leaders in the GBA before. I just think that it coming through with 4 kills this game, and the way Asta's been using it in the end of the season will continue and extend its kill total to above 20 kills, which is what Lopunny should be getting every season anyway. Coming into the final segment of the video, we're going to be talking about the current standings. Now, we need to talk about how Lars's loss has affected the standings for playoffs in the Pony Division, in that sense that Lars is now level on record with the same wins and losses as Joey, except having a mildly better differential, which means that Lars has to win out in order to make playoffs. Also, considering Gio lost as well, that means that if Lars loses a game and Gio wins out, Gio will make playoffs due to his record. Joey is in a bit more of a commanding position, considering he has to play Lars again in terms of record there as well. And the Gators extend their lead above Chimpact in the Melee conference or division with 1 more win over them, over the Tampa Bay Luxrays. And the Pelippers do have their playoff chances at risk due to the Bewares, who, if they win out, will in fact make playoffs over the Pelippers, as John aptly explains in his video. I think I've covered all the main parts of the standings, but do you want to pick up anything that I've missed?
Yeah, I don't want to do the pick and crew. I don't want to do the playoff picture, so I'm going to do the standings. Ready? San Diego Team Chargers are sitting 9-1 on a 6-game win streak. They're first in the Ulala division. The Pony Conference is led by the Kansas City Giraffe Chiefs at 8-2 on a 1-game winning streak, plus 23 differential. The Florida Gators, sort of sitting tight with their good buddy Chimpact. Gators 8-2, Chimps 7-3. Gators now on a 6-game winning streak. Him and Envy look like they're going in the form of their lives going forward. The Tampa Bay Luxrays are 7-3, 14 differential. The New Orleans Pelippers are 7-3, 9 differential. So it's going to be a tight race for the top of the Akala division. Also, I don't think it's just Pokemon that's got to worry about if the Bewares went out, because I think Wolfie can also take over Mono, if my math is correct. So it's going to be Ultra Moon Conference is definitely better than Ultra Sun because it's more competitive.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the weekly recap section for week 10. I hope you guys have appreciated the effort me and Bird have put into recover this game. Please bear with us throughout this video, I guess, or I hope you bear with us throughout this video, because we have tried to stick to the format that you know and love, but we are power rankers and not weekly recappers, so if it's a little bit different, please don't slaughter us in the comments. Shout out to everyone who helped with the graphics this season. Make sure you go and check out all of the coaches' games from both sides, because they all have been uploaded to an amazing standard as per usual. And then you should expect to see Xilicks and the Confusion back next week for their usual spot on the weekly recap, because I'm sure you guys don't want to be seeing Bird and Turbo 2 days in a row, 2 weeks in a row, because that would just be hell, wouldn't it? That's going to be me and Bird, because I'm not going to privilege Bird with an outro. Out.